All right. So this week I wrote an article about, whether or not your church should do online small groups. A lot of churches have done online small groups during 2020. And what I noticed was a lot of people that don't necessarily come very regularly to their small groups when they're entirely in person were actually showing up when they were online only. Now, that means that there's probably some opportunities there as part of your digital ministry pathway. But I want to talk a little bit more about the importance of small groups. I alluded in the article to my background as working in a small groups church as opposed to a church that has small groups. Now, a lot of people ask me questions about this because they'll say, well, our small groups aren't working out that well, things like that. I can tell you why they usually aren't working well. It's usually because there's no investment into it. So first off, you got to look at your actual expenditure. You got to look at your human resources, all that. How much money is being spent on small groups as a percentage of the budget? How many staff members are actually assigned full-time to overseeing small groups? These are two key indicators as to how invested you actually are and how well they're going to do. Likewise, the messaging. Is the messaging, hey guys, don't you dare miss Sunday? Or is it, hey guys, don't you dare miss your small group? A small groups church is going to say, don't you dare miss your small group. We don't care if you come on Sunday. A church that has small groups is going to say, you better come on Sunday, but we don't really care if you show up for your small group or not. Now, the important here is whether part of its size and scale. The bigger you get, the harder it actually is to scale your ministries without being a small groups church. Yeah, you can kind of keep doing the attractional model thing, but you're never going to be really good at discipleship. And discipleship is really what you're called to do as a Christian, as a church. Jesus didn't come down and say, go out into all the world and plant churches. That's more of a byproduct of what he did ask us to do, which was go out into all the world and make disciples. And he gave us two ways of doing that: by baptizing them and teaching them to obey all that he had commanded. Most churches buy into that. It's just they get very stuck into, well, we're bringing people into church. You need to focus more on the discipleship part, and small groups can be a great way to do that, especially as you grow. If you start to kind of push out even beyond 100 people, it starts to get difficult for you to oversee the discipleship of those people and to kind of shepherd them along. So that's why we would say probably start focusing in on developing good small groups, good small group strategy. When you do that, just a quick tip here, you want your small groups to fit in to the strategy wise. If your Sundays are really your main place where you're trying to focus on teaching people and teaching theology and doing worship, that's kind of your up element. So your small groups, you might want to focus on the in element, which would be like community building. So developing those, Christian community and helping people to get to know each other and be able to look after each other in that way. What you don't want to do is let your small groups all decide that there's something different. So you'll have some that are like a Bible study and they're very up focused. You'll have some that think that they're like all outreach. And so like they're struggling with a whole bunch of like new believers, but there's no real process or way to integrate those new believers. And then there's some that are going to be community focused, and they're probably going to be doing pretty well because usually small groups do pretty well if they're kind of community focused. You want to set expectations a bit from the top on these things, if at all possible, because you don't want them kind of all over the map. You're going to have a really hard time managing and helping them and being the discipleship agent for those small group leaders as well, because they're just all going to be on different pages in different places. So do make sure that you kind of say, okay, we've got these other things in the church. We've got these outreach events, and that's how we're doing our primary outreach. We've got the up event, which is mainly our midweek service. Unless you're like seeker sensitive, and then that's your outreach service. But however you've kind of positioned those things, small groups should kind of fit in there to assist and with that in, out, and up element. It can double up as long as you've got other things kind of covering that stuff. Just make sure that you're covering all your bases and that the small groups are fitting in and improving on those bases. All right, well, that's probably enough for this week. If you want to learn more about doing online small groups, go ahead and read my article for this week. And I look forward to talking to you guys again next week.